Every time I have you on about the Cavs, I am so worried that I'm like going to jinx something, right? So hopefully the Cavs have had a good 2 days. I'm recording this on Tuesday, November 26th. It is
For the
9:30 p.m.
record.
Like, I don't know if they have done what they have needed to do to be able to get out of here with the wins that they need in the in-season tournament. But things have definitely changed in Cleveland when you look at their record. They have been playing some of the best basketball that we've seen since LeBron James was here. And honestly, the best, like, this feels like it might be the best team that they've had without LeBron. Like, I know that they made the Eastern Conference Finals in the 70s one time, and then they never made it in the 90s, right? But I feel like we're approaching that territory with this Cavs team. Again, it's a young franchise, and like a third of it's dominated by LeBron, so it's not unusual that be the case. But yeah, the Cavs are on a much better track than they were just like the first post LeBron era. Donovan Mitchell, this trade, I posed this question on my channel. I'll ask you this to get your answer from it. Do you think this has a argument to be the best Cleveland sports trade of all time?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because with Donovan Mitchell, first of all, you traded for him in a situation that everybody ruled you out. He was a foregone conclusion to
Mm-hmm.
be a Knick. Like that was it.
Yeah.
And so for him, for that to secure that deal and to bring him here is one thing. And that puts you in that conversation of like one of the best trades that the city has seen. But then the continuity past it to extend him and to have the production out of him. I mean, this is something that Cleveland has been waiting for, right? They've been wanting something like this to happen. This doesn't happen to Cleveland. I mean, it should absolutely, but it doesn't really happen the way that it truly should. This is a very sports centric city, and across all the team. And I mean, and look at the Guardian. Like, look at the other teams, right? The Guardians are a small market farm team. The trades that they make aren't going to be big splash trades. And the Browns don't really make those big trades that like they haven't been able to like make a big impactful trade that has changed everything.
Well, it
Uh,
depends on if we're using impact and change in a positive
in a
light.
positive or a negative way, correct? That's fair. That's totally
Because
fair.
there was another trade that happened at the same time that Donovan Mitchell had that we will not mention on this
We won't
channel.
mention. We're not here to talk about that. We're gonna stay positive. But in the positive realm, right? Like this, what the Cavs did here with Donovan, I think is really exactly what Cleveland fans have been wanting. They've wanted to see this from any kind of franchise in Cleveland, and for the Cavs to do it, and not only do it, then to build off of it in a really smart way, and to be able to secure
Mm-hmm.
a future with him, and then build this team that has at its core, truly the core four, has they've had faith and belief in and stayed the course, and it's worked out for them. This is really truly, I think, unprecedented and uncharted waters for Cleveland in the best way possible.
How much do you think the part of this where Donovan chooses Cleveland, right? Like he got traded here, but he didn't really have a say in that. This off season, he chose to stay here, right? He chose to be here. He chose to anchor himself down. How much of an effect do you think that's had? I think it's clearly had one on the fan base, right? Like it's been so much easier for fans to embrace him because they know that, like, you choose us at Cleveland, we would have you back forever.
Yeah,
Um,
forever.
and I think also with Donovan choosing to be here and anchoring here, you're not in the locker room wondering like, hey, is this thing gonna be seismically shifted because he doesn't want to be here anymore? Are there gonna be concerns because like he kind of had a little bit of a beef with his last guy in Utah? Like, is there gonna be a situation where he gonna ask out or something like that, right? Like, I think everybody can be secure and knowing like, okay, this is our guy. We have him. We have 3 years to build around it, and I think it's like a player option or something like that for the fourth. So You have some security here. This is where he's going to be. Donovan don't got to worry about looming decisions. And it's something we talk about a lot on the football channel, but it's like, hey, man, we underestimate the people stuff and how much that affects a player. Because, like, you don't think Donovan was thinking about this all season last year? Like, what's he going to do? What does the family want? Like, where should I play? Where does it make sense? What are some upcoming, like, anything, the things that you would think about if you were considering leaving your career to do a job somewhere else in a different city, right? Like, are the same things that he probably had to think about, and everybody else who's affected by him. And because he's Donovan Mitchell, that's a big domino that falls. How much is that domino finally falling and being in a stable place and knowing that he's going to be here, he's committed to this franchise, the franchise committed to him, has aided in what has been just a much better vibe and a much better team than last year?
Yeah, I think it's, well, first it's the weight lifted, but I do think within that team that they knew. I mean, Donovan said he's known for a long time. Obviously, he weighed out options, but I think there was
Mm-hmm.
there was a clear vibe that like he likes being here. He wanted to be here and he wanted to see this thing through. They have a lot of confidence in the roster that they have, and they have a lot of confidence in what they're putting on the court where other people might not have been as confident, right? I mean, and it's easy to not have been. When you look back at last season and you see the big question was Donovan and Darius Garland together on the court at the same time. And I asked Kobe Altman about it at the end of the season, and he referred back to advanced metrics and their plus minuses when they're on the court together, and they really liked what they were able to do together. And then people were drawing back to the eye test, like, well, they didn't win games. They were struggling. And I think that just plays back into the individual. They had a lot of struggles last year. Darius Garland in particular, he went through a hellish season with the jaw fracture. And then you have, the loss of his grandmother
Mm-hmm.
and playing through the adversity that he had, that's going to play into it. And so for, I think, Donovan to see past the advanced metrics and to see like, yeah, this is a guy that I want to play with. This is a core that works together. I can see where this goes. I think the team knew that he was kind of in on that part. He saw the potential. And I mean, truthfully, I it makes sense. Like everything about like Donovan Mitchell has been bought in. It's just, it has always made sense to him in terms of like location and how much he does like truly appreciate like being in Cleveland, still being pretty close to home. It's always made sense. So I think at the core, I think the team's confidence has stretched back, but they weren't in the dark as much as maybe the rest of us were. I think they kind of had a better sense of this was going to be the future. But now that it's happened, I do think it's like a weight, right? Like a weight lifted. It's been a weight lifted. He's here, he's locked in, he's committed to this city, this team, and we can really truly lean into this build that we have banked on, this core four. And bringing Kenny Atkinson in, I think, was a true shift because it's what you had, but how do I amplify it and how do I get deeper? How
Mm-hmm.
how do as a team we go into our and develop the bench and develop the young guy, to develop Darius because he's still so young, right? There's still a lot to unlock with him. Truly, the focus of developing Evan Mobley into the guy that they all see him being able to be this unicorn, right? They call him a unicorn all the time. How do you unlock that? How do you truly make him a unicorn? And then how do you get into the bag and into the depth and go into your rotation and be able to count on guys? And Kenny Atkinson, I think, is that answer. So Donovan Mitchell committing to Cleveland and choosing to stay here, I think was the first domino, right? That you talked about dominoes, the first domino that allowed all of these other things to happen in the way that they hoped for and envisioned. And now we're seeing those choices come to fruition. And so far, it looks like it's beyond just a good couple of decisions. It looks like everything has played out the way that they envisioned it and some.
Yeah, yeah, and it's also been a story of patience, right, with these players. And I think I've had you on this channel before, and we've talked about how just young these Cavs players are, and how we're kind of expecting things to happen very quickly, but it's not going to be as quick as some people want it to be. When I look at this team and I look at the Cavs. I think the one area they deserve a lot of credit for is some of their like G League development, like developmental moves here. Because with Sam Merrill is somebody that you're gonna have to figure out, like, oh man, do we not want him in the rotation, right? Like now they didn't do much to develop Ty, but I feel like Kenny is doing a lot there, and Ty's doing a lot there, just being healthy again for this team. Like the Cavs have kind of, or Dean Wade is another one where they've taken these guys who are like maybe undrafted second round picks and kind of found rotational pieces out of them. I think Isaac Okoro is another example of a dude that they developed well. Evan Mobley's 3-point shot. Remember, everybody was furious about him taking all them threes, like, and we were like, it's gonna pay off in a couple of years, man. I promise you, because you don't want him to make those threes. And like the fact that he's making these threes at an acceptable rate now, and he's in Kenny Atkinson's system, um, I think is just spectacular for this team and spectacular for where the Cavs want to be at. When is there? Who do you think? Like when you look at like some of the young pieces like Jalen Tyson, what do you think they have envisioned for him in his development? Like, what role do you see a dude like that playing if the Cavs are able to continue the Kenny Atkinson plan for the next 3-4 years?
Yeah, I mean, when they drafted him, they talked about him like he's an instant playmaker, and you saw him in a starting lineup this season already, and that to me
Mm-hmm.
screams that they are confident not only just in his production, but his quick ability to develop into a guy that can be in there, he can be on the court and aid you on both sides of the court, and that's really what Jalen Tyson is, and you saw it in his debut, and I don't know that that was a fluke. I think obviously that opportunity presented itself and he took full advantage. And I don't know that they're just going to just necessarily lean all the way into that because there is the developmental angle. And you definitely don't want to put him in a position where they had Evan Mobley, right? Where they just kind of, all right, out of necessity, we're going to throw you into this role and we're going to ask you to do all of these things. We want you to take shots, but like doesn't matter. You don't get to work through the process of a good shot versus I should handle this. I should be physical at the rim. I'm going to shoot. This is the three I should take. I don't think that they necessarily leaned into that the way that they needed to with Evan Mobley. And now they're back to that and they've developed him on all facets of his game. And I think that's where Jalen Tyson to me stands is a guy that he'll be in there for moments and minutes and he'll get those opportunities, but you'll be able to see him. You'll see the areas in which they want him to work. You'll see maybe a very specific set of goals for him, and that what he puts on the court will be like, okay, let's focus you on this, let's focus you on that, because they have the luxury of they don't really need to play him unless they want to.
Mm-hmm.
They can go as deep into their bench, and Kenny Atkinson has talked about going 11 like 12, 10, 11, 12 deep in a random game. And that's like that's the luxury the Cavs have of this roster right now. And I think that's where Jalen Tyson will fit in is being able to use him in moments that you want him, letting him develop in the way that he needs to, not forcing him into situations that might make or break him, and just like letting the game come to him, which is who he is. He's a playmaker and he's a quick learner, and we've seen that already.
Yeah, and speaking of like these analogies for where the Cavs have and like how they use these guys, Tristan Thompson, absolutely the fire extinguisher, right? Like break glass in case you need a big. Like, okay. Like, oh, Tristan, let's get him in the field. Like, other than that, Tristan stays under the sink, right? Chilling, doing what Tristan does here.
Bring
But I do
energy.
want, yeah, just energies and cutoffs. But I do want to ask about Max Strus, right? He had the injury earlier before the season. Where is he at? And do you think he's going to hit the court anytime soon? And is this a situation where he's going to be able to hit the ground running once he comes back?
You know what? I don't know how soon. Truly not really sure. I know that he's worked with the team. He's been able to do some stuff. He's not just strictly rehab. He's been able to hit the court and do some things.
Mm-hmm.
But the extent of that, I am not 100% sure. I think that does pave the way towards a return. And he's working hard, like to get back. And I'm very intrigued to see, that fit where he comes in. And I truly think that, we've seen so many different lineups already that are just
Mhm.
so different that it wouldn't surprise me if, he comes back. He's obviously a starter, but if he takes on different roles on a nightly basis, and
Yeah.
especially like coming back from the injury. But right now, I think he's trending in the right direction. How soon? I wish I could tell you. I truly don't know, but I know that he's gotten work in. So that to me is a good sign in his development towards getting back into game action.
Yeah, do you think that's one of Kenny's strengths is his like the lineup stuff, right? Because I remember with JB, we would kind of get nervous whenever we hear he's starting to cook up some different lineups, and we're like, oh man, JB. Sometimes you be having Tristan playing point, like or you throw out like three centers, and we just giving up corner threes all game. Like, how much do you feel like Kenny has made a difference with the lineups out there? Because like I think I've seen some positive difference there.
Yeah, I think that was a big part of the coaching change in general. That's why they went out. And this, like JB, the man and a coach, he's a good coach. He's a good coach and a great man who truly helped create a culture in Cleveland. And this is not to knock him, but I think Kenny Atkinson is a little bit more advanced in what he is able to do in terms of lineups. And Kenny Atkinson is a basketball savant. Like that is just
Mm-hmm.
like truly, that is the description of who he is. He puts these lineups together and you look at them and you're like, I don't know. And somehow they'll either work, or if they don't work, he'll get them off the court, and he gets to play around with them. He does.
Like,
He's managed to do them in good timing.
how many times have you looked around and you be like, do they have Ty Jerome
Yep.
and Darius Garland and Craig Porter Jr. and George Niang, and then it's just Evan Mobley in the paint? And are they like plus 15 right now?
Yep. Oh,
Like,
it's like all season. I like look up. I'm like, oh, that's a new lineup. Mark
yeah.
another one. That one hasn't been on the court together before. They haven't been on the court together before. I'm like, oh, is that one big out there? So we're
Mm-hmm.
playing real small ball tonight. Okay. Like, and then they come back from a timeout and it's like totally different back to the starting lineup. Yeah, no, he does that all the time. And I think that's what makes him so unique and what was such a big draw for the Cavs. The Cavs knew they needed to take that next step, right? Like JB had created this culture and this foundation within the players to buy in, and that's massive. But to take that next step of getting through into the playoffs and securing a spot in the finals, I think they truly believe, okay, we need somebody who has a little bit more innovation that can take it to a different level, elevate us. And I don't know that JB had it in him, and I hope that he gets that in Detroit. I hope that that's something that like develops with him because he's a new head coach.
Mm-hmm.
This was his first, this is his first job. So I think Kenny Atkinson has been long, you know, renowned as this guy that has all of these great ideas and can really be a strength to your team. And the Cavs capitalized on it, and you're seeing that in action play out in what he is putting together on a court. And it seems like it was the right move. This is exactly what the Cavs were looking for. This was that next step that they knew they needed from the coaching. And Kenny Atkinson has it. He's got that it factor that the Cavs were looking for and in developing and creating the lineups and making adjustments and just executing against any opponent. And I don't know when this is going to come out. Again, we talked about it, like for the record, they didn't beat Boston, but they could beat Boston. Like this is a possibility. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's their big hurdle right now
This
is
will go
beating
out
Boston.
before the Boston game.
Okay, so
I
their
will
big hurdle
promise
will
you.
be Boston. We'll see if they can beat them at home.
But yeah, I think with Kenny, I wonder how much he had to hold in his excitement, like to try to get this job, because like now that we've seen what he's doing, we can look at this with Kenny vision, and what Kenny saw was 7-foot Draymond Green, right? that can lock down on the perimeter with length, close out on threes, and then hold stuff down in the paint, and then can facilitate. Plus, an ability that Draymond never really had is like he can take you from the perimeter and get a bucket, right? And then no, you don't got Clay and you don't got Steph. But that's where you go back, and like Kenny Atkinson is just a well-traveled coach, right? Because he goes all the way back to these influences, back to Mike Budenholzer. Mike Budenholzer was the lead lieutenant for Greg Popovich, right? So you're like, okay, well, there's some Pop influence there, right? Because when you look at how they use certain players, like it sounds crazy when I say this, but they're kind of using George Niang like Boris Diaw. like it's yeah. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? And it's like, okay, like like I think some people are like locking in, oh, it's the Warriors offense. Oh, I tend to lean towards it feels like more of what Pop was doing in like 14, because this feels like a team that understands to win a championship. It usually takes you needing to one of the like an Olympic starter, right? Like somebody who could start on your Olympic team. Like that's usually what it takes. I think maybe the Celtics, because they were such a strong overall unit, they might be the one team since the Greg Popovich Spurs to have won a championship without that. And it's debatable because Jason Tatum is arguably in the top 5 of the NBA, right? Donovan Mitchell's not in that argument yet, as far as like top 5 players in the league. And then you also got to add in he plays a 2 guard, he's not a wing, and usually there's more of a lean towards wings, power forwards. And if you look at a team that was able to achieve a lot without having anything close to that, it was the 2013 Spurs. Like Kawhi wasn't that guy yet. Tim was just done being that guy. And I think there is a little bit of that in there. I think there is a little bit of Mike Budenholzer, Atlanta Hawks in there with how they like to use some of their, not like they don't use Darius like Jeff Teague, but they do kind of like use Ty Jerome in a similar fashion sometimes, or Karis LeVert, where it's just like, hey, go get buckets, green light for you, right? And since you have on this starting lineup, when you starting Jared Allen's the only guy who can't make threes, but he can cut to the basket and set screens really well. So he's still a threat from the corner, so you can't just sit on him. And then you have everybody else, Darius, Evan, Donovan, and whoever you're deciding to start at 3, whether it be Isaac Okoro or it's going to be Max Strus if he comes back, or maybe even Ty Jerome, right? Because they have all these 6'5" combo guards. You can put out a lineup that's like, okay, well, you can spread them from the perimeter, but you also have 2 guys who are deadly from the top of the key. Evan Mobley, who can facilitate off the top of the key, and both those guys who can penetrate are also catch and shoot threats, and high tier catch and shoot threats. And that versatility with that backcourt, I think, is going to be the key to this Cavs team's success, because it's one thing if you can shoot the lights out. It's another thing if you can control the game, because you don't have to shoot the lights out to win. Like if you're having an off night, like I talked about this with Danny, so I don't want to be too repetitive. But what they were able to do against Boston, I thought was impressive, because it was like, okay, the shots ain't falling. It don't matter. We're going to get in the bucket. We're going to get in the paint. Now, specifically with a team like Boston, I think there's been a considerable trend that Evan Mobley's averaged like 22 against them, right? Because they play so small, especially without Kristaps Porzingis. Do you think in this upcoming game against Boston, this is one where they make more of a concerted effort to try to exploit that? I understand why they're not going to put 2 bigs out there against Boston, and maybe they go even more extreme, because you just can't have the corners open up like that, like they do when you have 2 bigs. So that would probably be a part of the counter. And then if you want to run that kind of a lineup, you got to play Evan like 35 minutes. That's just going to be what it's going to have to be. Like Jared's going to take like 25. Do you think that they go into this game with that in mind of like, hey, Evan's gotten 20 off of them. It doesn't feel like it's a coincidence. It feels like there's something there that like makes the interior soft, and they can look at it and go, we went away from that in the 4th quarter against them because Ty Jerome got hot. But maybe that's something that we should get. Well, not Craig Porter Jr. got hot in the fourth quarter, and maybe that's something we should go back to and lean on more. Like, when do you think it's offensively it's going to turn from Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell show featuring Evan Mobley to all three of their shows equally offensively? Because it still feels like at times, Evan can be a part of it. He's not, but like he's not a full-time member of the scoring barrage for this team.
Yeah, I think that's truly dictated by Evan, first of all. I do think that in this game in particular, upcoming against Boston, I think I don't know if it's a concerted effort, right? But you saw the first matchup with Boston didn't go. It was particularly a tough outing for Darius Garland. Darius, he's like, yeah, the shots weren't falling, but he kept taking the shots, and there was that effort to keep him going and trying to get him to get on track and to get him those shots. And 3 for 21, like that, it just didn't happen. And that's the reality of it. Now you go into this next one, you obviously want to give him the chance to rebound from it and to show up and make sure they know that he is Darius Garland and he is back to his old ways, which I think that we can say that he's gotten there. We've seen in numerous moments the all-star Darius that we've seen in the years past before that jaw injury and what last season held. So I think that, like, not necessarily a concerted effort, but there obviously is a desire for him to be able to get it going against Boston, because I think it's the team's hurdle because it's the only team they've lost to, but it's his hurdle because that's the one that really got him. And it caught him on an off night where he was going on a no rest. Everyone else had gotten kind of some rest time. Darius was not quite there yet. He got it after that one, but I think that what you see from the Cavs, it should be letting him get back to it. And then Evan Mobley, when you realize, what he can do against this team and how he facilitates on both sides, you've got to maybe cater a little bit to him and let him him figure out where the game goes in terms of him, because this is a team you're going to have to go through 100%. Like there's no way in my mind that Boston is not a team you have to get through to get to where you want to be. And so if you can figure it out and you can start to figure it out in the regular season, that's the time to do it. Like, give Evan Mobley that opportunity to go out there and exploit and figure out where he can make them hurt, how he can offensively take control, and then do what he does. And hopefully that Darius show, like Donovan Mitchell, it's the Donovan Mitchell show every night. And it's been the Darius Garland show a lot of nights. And I hope that this next one is the opportunity for all three of them to be on at the same time. But I think that what we've seen overall are a dominating performance from the Celtics, and not just like obviously like this season, but like last season, playoffs, like dominating performances from them, and a lackluster outing from the Cavs last season. And this year, I think you saw a really big showing from Donovan and a lackluster outing from Darius, and Evan Mobley is Evan Mobley. If you get all three on the same page, that's what you need to build on. And that's a look that I think that they try to pursue, because you need to be able to get a feel for them if you're going to go through them when it counts.
All right, Cam, appreciate you being on. Where can more people look for some of your stuff, just like more Cavs specific, if you have any place for it?
Yeah, I mean, I share everything on same thing. You have to like weed through. If you're not a big Browns fan, you got to weed through some Brown stuff, and I do Guardian stuff too. So at Cami Justice on social, but you're gonna get a lot more Cavs stuff. I have actually, again, I don't know this. It might have already come out, but definitely go back and look for it when this comes out. I have an exclusive sit down with Darius Garland. Not to, I've just talked about him so much in this in this conversation with you, Q. But no, I like sit down with Darius and talk about his journey and where he's going, and that was a really cool opportunity. And I'm excited to extend. We started it last season in a very limited manner, but this season we will extend my Next Man Up series with the Cavs, and we'll get to let you know more about who they are as people, some of these guys. So that will start to pick up here soon. You'll get to get the personalities of some of these guys, these up and coming that we talked about on this show too. So super excited. Definitely check it out on my socials and News 5 Cleveland.
Need the next man up, Tristan Thompson.
You know what? I don't think it's out of the question to do him. I know that he's been there. Like, you know, he's that next. He's just the man now. Like he's just there. He's there all the time.
Mo eats, Tristan Thompson eats. Like we need a whole eats brand from the Cam Justice world.
Food tours across
media.
Cleveland with all these athletes. Let's go.
I feel like you get two completely different vibes with Tristan because Tristan been around money. You know, like Tristan hangs around LeBron and like the Kardashians. So like Mo blue collar man. But if you try to see what that high value slice of life in Cleveland is, I feel like Tristan to give it to you. You know. Look,
I might have to inquire. Let's see what Tristan's about.
I don't think Tristan has bought anything or worn anything that hasn't been tailored in years. Okay. Like,
you know, his people aren't letting him do that. There's no chance.
No. Tristan Thompson, definitely. That he is like, it's so interesting too, like the dichotomy of it, because Tristan Thompson in real life lives a very, very rich life, right? Because he is part of that Kardashian family, but also like he kind of kicks it like a blue collar dude, like at work, right? Like he be out there like a dock worker. He just be out there just hustling, cheering for people. Like it's the strangest difference. Like,
there's I mean, I truly mean this. Like Tristan Thompson is just like, he's just a normal guy. Like he's like very friendly, very like, hey, what's up? Going like, you don't get the vibe that he's like, you know, big money, but he's big money. We know he's money.
Look, everything feel normal about Tristan until you figure out how much that cologne he got on cost, right? Like, until you start looking at the labels on his clothes, and you like,
it's like that's right. That makes sense.
That ain't even out yet. Okay, like, yeah, and that's the most hilarious thing about Tristan. Is like, you would have never guessed if I would have told you in 2011 that Tristan Thompson would be more famous with people who don't watch basketball than people who do watch basketball. Like, you would have been like, what are you talking? This guy just came out of Texas and he's a double guy. Like he's like, what Jared Allen or something like that, like kind of like in that same range of player. We're like, oh yeah, it's a hustle guy, it's a hooper, like, you know, energy big. And then like, I don't know when the change happened. It had to have been when LeBron came to the team, right? Like I imagine that's when most things started to change. And like he never changed his personality on the court, but the stories you would hear about Tristan Thompson as far as like on social media or just like being reported or just like part of the reality show, you're like, what in the world? Tristan Thompson? I've never watched a minute of the Kardashians reality show, but it always shocks me when like he goes trending on Twitter and people are like, he plays basketball? Like, what?
I mean, it really, people like if you post anything about him on social, like you get like a flood of people who are like reality TV junkies who are like, oh, I know this guy, but it's not because he plays for the Cavs. No, it's not. That's not why.
Yeah, it's like, oh wow, yeah, that's court. Like, it's like that's nuts. For Tristan, but hilarious guy. Definitely got to get him on Next Man Up. And you know what? For sure, got to see if you can work, because you know what, Cam? Maybe you want to eat like that. You know, you deserve it. Like Cam and Tristan eats. Like
I like it. I like the pitch. Let me get the high life a little bit. Let me experience this. We do good. We do good on Mo Eats over there on the ground. I think that Tristan could add a different element. This is my informal pitch to him.
You know what I mean? You're like, hey man, I've never had the most expensive thing at Marble Room. Like, I'm sure Tristan has.
I'm looking at that menu. I'm like, what does this cost? Let's add this all up.
I don't even think Marble Room's a place where they even give you the price on the menus. It's just one of the things where it's just like, yeah, man, you gotta hope the bill comes. Like market value, everything. But appreciate you, Cam, for coming on here. If I have any more show ideas, we'll definitely have to pass them on through to you. If you could pass this on, we'll see. I don't know how Jared Allen will receive it, that I'll be calling him the garbage man, but it's a very complimentary thing, right? Like, I'll explain to you off air why I call him the garbage man.
Yeah, no, I'll get the deets and we'll see where we can work this thing out.
You know, but appreciate you, Cam, for coming on. Y'all have a great day. Have you a better night. Peace.